Hello my soccer universe and welcome to a review of round 32 in Serie A. A little bit late, it's Easter week. This was an interesting round that more or less solidified the standings, I would say. I think the current top four are the top four based on this week's results, and also if I look further down the schedule. Also in the title race, while I really would like Napoli to win that title, if I look at the schedule for Inter, I don't really see it. I mean, their toughest game is the upcoming one, Bologna away. And then the other toughest games are both Roman teams at home. And I really don't see any of these taking points from Inter, even though Roma is in good form. And what for me speaks for Inter, everyone is claiming that the schedule is so hard for Inter because they also have Champions League to play and they have so many games and this Coppa Italia semi-final and. Truth is that the schedule works out so well for Inzaghi that he can rotate as he would like and adjust his squad for the weaker opponents. He never has tough game after tough game after tough game. And that I find rather remarkable and very much speaking in favor of Inter. If only they would not have played in such god-awful jerseys like they did this weekend, where, you take an away jersey that's already very mediocre and you add a yellow stripe to it that makes absolutely no sense. And yes, I know it's Valentino Rossi that they wanted to honor with this one, but do it in a better way. Make a special jersey, not make a mediocre jersey even worse. Well, that's just my opinion. Another thing that I have observed is that two teams that were rather failing all of the season, I'm speaking of course Juventus and Milan, and while Juve fans have been crying foul over how bad they have been, it will work out for Juve. But both of these teams put in convincing performances, yes, against bad opponents, but even there they have been struggling. So I think both teams are on the up. Juventus might well extend with Tudor, the stability that he has given them. I don't know, maybe it's not exactly what Juve would like, but he's a Juve man. For Milan, it seems like a little bit too little, too late for Sergio Conceição. The only way to salvage the season is to win the Coppa Italia, and that's not really what Milan set out to do this season. But take a title at least out of this really rotten season. Of course, the big fixture of the week was the Roma Derby. Very atmospheric, beautiful tifos. The game even was a very gripping affair. The only trouble is that the result doesn't help either of the teams. So those were two losers after the derby, and especially for Lazio, who after a really rough showing in Norway, showed that they can play much better, but they also showed that this 2-0 deficit that they have is really, really hard for them to turn around. So I think Lazio are out of the Europa League already and out of the Champions League race, more or less. But before we get ahead of ourselves, let's summarize the action from this weekend, and we'll see each other on the other side of that. On Friday evening, we saw for once a really convincing performance by Milan, going to Udine and winning 4-0, and every bit of 4-0 as you would expect. And suddenly the formation was working. He played a 3-4-3, and it seemingly that did the trick, at least against Udinese, who admittedly have been in rotten form. This is the fourth loss in a row. However, Milan at Udine was never an easy game. Milan had complete domination, should have probably scored early already through Reinders. They finally get the breakthrough through a beautiful Leão shot in the 42nd minute, just from the edge of the box into the corner. What an absolute stunner. And then Pavlovic heads it in the 45th minute after Pulisic corner. More domination by Milan in the second half, however, also a very scary scene when Mike Maignan, I think it was Jimenez, crashed into each other while tracking back, and Mike Maignan was out cold there, had to be taken off, had to go to hospital. Fortunately, it seems everything is alright with him, so Sport Yellow had to come in. But then, second half, again Milan launching more counterattacks. Tammy Abraham came on for Luka Jovic, and he was very much instrumental in Theo's 3-0, guiding it on. Then Theo just runs and takes another brilliant shot. Where have Leão and Theo Hernandez been doing this the entire season? I mean, Leão at least is now the assist leader in Serie A, which, honestly. And then Reinders in the 81st minute gets finally his goal as well. After Leão assist, he probably should have scored early. He had plenty of chances. But yeah, that was a convincing performance by Milan. And I really wonder, why not sooner? For once, the Derby della Capitale not only delivered off the pitch, what beautiful tifos by both sets of fans. Roma with all the jerseys from the former glory years, and of course Bartolomei, their captain, in the front and center of the 83 title winning squad. But Lazio fans, even better, with a tifo showing all the sides of Rome. Absolutely brilliant stuff. Absolutely love that one. But the game also delivered on the pitch. Especially Lazio, who after their real bad showing at Bordeaux, put in a completely different shift and put a lot of pressure on Roma, and probably should have led at halftime already. If not one, then 2 goals. Romagnoli probably had the best chance there, but it was all Lazio pressuring Roma, who actually had been the form side going into the derby. And finally Lazio reward themselves right after halftime break when it's a Pellegrini free kick that hits Romagnoli. 2 Romans combining, and Romagnoli heads it home. Not only 2 Romans combining, 2 Romans playing for Lazio, and Romagnoli has been a Lazio fan, but both of these have been in the youth system for Roma. So kind of a interesting pairing right there. But Roma were better in the game in the second half and get the equalizer through Matthias Sule with an absolutely brilliant shot that is like the Wembley goal in the 1966 World Cup final, but this time it goes in and it jumps out, so there was not the controversy there. The referee quickly showed on the whistle. It was also weird. I mean, there was a whole lot of intensity there, and how some players barely got yellow cards also told a story that the referee didn't really want to decide that game, because a stricter referee might as well have sent off a player or 2. Spoils are shared. In the end, I have to say, it feels more like a loss for Lazio based on the game, but if you look at the situation in the table, both teams were the losers on that night. Marko Arnautovic was very much the hero in Inter's 3-1 win over Cagliari, and of course it was a rotated squad. That's the thing with Inzaghi, that he knows that the Inter squad is good enough that against less opposition, even a rotated Inter will rack up the points. However, it was the Arnautovic show. He opened the scoring in the 13th minute after a Carlos Augusto pass. I actually think he didn't necessarily want to go for the goal and wanted more an assist, but the way he touched it, he then said, well, I might as well put it into the net. Any doubts though that he didn't want it were removed for the second goal. I mean, what a no-look pass from midfield into the path of Lautaro Martinez to make it 2-0. Absolutely brilliant stuff. That's the Arnautovic that you haven't seen all that often for Inter, that we saw with Austria a teeny bit. Credit where credit is due. Piccoli get Cagliari a little bit into the game, but there was never any nervy moments. Bisek, after Di Marco cross, heads it in to make it 3-1 in the 55th minute, and Inter were cruising and already focusing on their return leg against Bayern, and in the knowledge that they have now a 6-point cushion over Napoli, albeit with a game more. And with all that pressure on Napoli needed to get a win over Empoli. Fortunately, it was only Empoli, because this is a team that Napoli should beat even with their eyes closed, and they very much dominated it. However, they really hit the next gear once McTominay gave them the lead with a wide-range shot. The goalie did not really look good on that one. But we also have to say that Esposito did hit the post when it was 1-0 for Napoli. Lukaku in the 56th minute doubles the score, and then McTominay gets the brace in the 61st, so everything going swimmingly for him. A nice Lukaku assist as well, and also McTominay hit even the post himself. So very much Napoli rolling. However, might it be a little bit too late to go on such a run? In any case, the title race remains on. It's only 3 points between Inter and Napoli. In the battle for top 4, Juve got an important 2-1 home win over Lecce, but that only tells half the story, because in the first half Juve put in probably the best performance of the entire season, scoring early for Copa minus with Vlahovic assisting, and Vlahovic also assisted the star of the entire evening in Kenan Yildiz, who played brilliantly and throughout, and especially in the first half. Now, you might say this was only Lecce, but performances like these we have not seen from Juventus during the entire season, especially under Motta, so maybe there is the turnaround. And they didn't even flinch when Basquiorotto in the 87th minute pulls one back for a hard battling Lecce side that desperately want to avoid relegation. And that Juve win then put a lot of pressure on both Atalanta and Bologna, and this was already a battle for the top 4, and Bologna were the inform side, where Atalanta have been really on the skids with 3 losses in a row. However, this time it was Atalanta. They opened the scoring, Belanova seized Retegui in the 3rd minute. And then while Bologna were pressing, Atalanta hit on the counter-attack. Retegui assisting Pajalic. It's 2-0 in the 21st minute, right in the point where Bologna thought they had gotten back into the game. They do hit once the post through Ndoye. There was also a scary scene where Kolasinac had to be substituted and stretchered off the field. In the second half, Bologna relentless attacking. However, they barely ever troubled Atalanta, and so it ends with a little bit surprising 2-0 win for Atalanta. Let's also run through the remaining results. Venezia finally get a win, a 1-0 over last place Monza. This was probably the best opportunity to pick up 3 points, but they really struggled to score, and this has been the story of the season for Venezia until Fila finally puts it over the line, and he gets himself also sent off with 2 yellow cards late on. So from hero to zero in a way, Venezia though hold on. Whatever Serie A game you picked on Sunday at 3 o'clock, the classic 3 o'clock slot that is more or less forgotten these days, you didn't see any goals. Also very Italian. Fiorentina and Parma both playing in alternate jerseys, which was really weird. Play out a 0-0 draw. And the point is probably a little bit more valuable for Parma, although 3 points is what Parma really need. But for Fiorentina, this was really a missed opportunity because all the other teams battling for Europe were actually winning. And in the other Sunday afternoon slot, Verona and Genoa also play out a 0-0 draw. Meanwhile, Como steers safely more towards mid-table, beating the most mid-table of all Serie A teams, Torino 1-0, thanks to a Dubicas goal. With these results, the status quo on top of the table has been preserved. It's 6 games left, and Inter have a 3-point cushion over Napoli, and I really have a hard time seeing how this cushion can melt. Goal difference will become the tiebreaker because head-to-heads ended in a 1-1 draws. It's 4 points. Napoli need to be better than Inter. I really don't see it. However, Atalanta and Juventus have managed a turnaround and now have the top positions to end up in the Champions League again, whereas Bologna will have a hill to climb. But 2 points doesn't seem a lot, but I think this Juve team has really stabilized at the moment, and so Bologna will go more into Europa League, which maybe is even better suiting for them. Lazio is also still in the running, as is Roma. Fiorentina and Milan might get a Conference League spot. How much they would like it, I mean, Conference League is Fiorentina's competition. On the bottom, Monza out, Empoli and Venezia have now 24 points. Venezia have leapfrogged Empoli. I just don't quite see. Venezia need to get more wins if they want to get out. Lecce is dangerously in there, but it is still exciting, and I wouldn't even say that Parma is out of it, because Parma also need to turn draws into wins, and that's what they're failing to do. The Easter weekend definitely stretched the Serie A around, and we have quite a few really big name games. We have, for instance, Bologna taking on Inter. The last time that Inter lost in a title race was because they lost at Bologna, this makeup game, blah, blah, blah. So there might be some hope there for Napoli. However, I don't quite see it, honestly. Even if they get out with a draw, it's still enough. This is Inter's toughest remaining game, at least according to me. We also have Milan playing at home against Atalanta. Also don't know what to make of it. For Milan, it will be more important to prepare for the Coppa Italia semi-final return leg. That happens then a few days later. Napoli have to go to Monza. That should be easy 3 points. However, nothing has been easy for Napoli. Roma face Hellas. Lazio have to go to Genoa. Also not an easy fixture. And Parma take on Juventus. So I think when I look at relegation and European spots, those are very enticing, but I don't quite see any real upsets there. So those were my thoughts on round 32. As I said, it all seems falling into place. And as a Milan fan, I already said, I don't really know what to make of this performance. It's great to see your team do well. It's so late. Maybe this can lift them to the Coppa Italia trophy that I haven't won since 2003. And I always said, I would love for Milan to finally win a Coppa Italia again. That's the competition where they have been underperforming. In any case, please let me know who will win Serie A, who will make it into the Champions League. Was this the round where we really saw that the top 4 separated themselves from the rest? questions after questions. Drop a line below, give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed this video, subscribe to my channel if you want to see more videos like these. I'll talk to you soon about more things in my soccer universe. Bye! Hey there! I really hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, here are some videos and playlists that you may enjoy too. Also, please consider subscribing to my channel and hit the little bell icon so you get notified whenever something happens in my soccer universe. And with that, have a wonderful day. Bye!